Welcome to Drew and Dan Digress, episode 17. My name is Drew.
My name is Dan.
And this is our first episode with interstate connectivity, which basically means Dan and I are broadcasting from different states because Dan moved.
I moved away.
Yeah, you did. Far, 1,700 miles away.
Oh, creep. You stalker. Creep actually figured out how far away I moved.
I need to be able to find you. No.
I just asked. But okay.
Honestly, I wanted to do a Facebook update explaining why we hadn't done a podcast on time, and I was like, well, it'll have more impact, more gravitas if I actually say, well, Dan moved 1,700 miles away. So that's why I did. It's probably not exactly 7. I just said from, this town in Colorado to this town in North Carolina. How far is it? So give or take,
a few miles.
10 or 15 miles, I guess. But anyway, So how are things in the South? Pseudo-South, I guess. South?
Yeah, things are good. I'm not so far south to where things are annoying, which is good. But just far enough to where people are really, really nice, and everything is just super gorgeous and great, and a lot of friendly people. We were in a GameStop earlier, and I think we talked for like 20 minutes with this random person in there. It was just crazy.
That's awesome.
I also think he was high, but that's another story. The point is, he was nice.
Whether they're high or not, you're still getting a nice dose of that Southern hospitality, I guess.
Yes.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad things are going well.
Very, very well.
You're seeing someone. You're kind of, you're a big boy now, which is great.
Exactly.
And, so congratulations. But I'm glad, we live in the 21st century and we can still do a podcast. Amazing.
Yes.
We don't have to be in the same room. We were only really in the same room maybe twice the whole time we did the podcast.
Good shows, though.
Those were good shows, I have to say. But this will do.
Yeah.
This will be good. I guess. Whatever. Streaming
Can't beat
live.
that studio live action.
I know. You can't beat the real face-to-face, not just the digital face-to-face.
Digital delay face-to-face.
Yeah, the slight delay face-to-face. We are working on that, by the way. If you've wondered why we sometimes talk over each other, it's because there's a little bit of a delay in how we do this with Hangouts and everything like that. So we're exploring options. We do apologize. I try and catch it in the editing, but sometimes I don't. And then I listen to it later. I'm like, well, we're saying the same thing at the same time, and it sounds terrible. Terrific.
Great. Good stuff.
We are working on that. It's not going amiss. If you hear stuff like that, please let us know in the comments, on YouTube or on drewanddandigress.com or wherever, because we need to know about that stuff to make the show better. Because we don't have any fancy editors or anything listening to the whole thing just because that's their job.
Yes.
Maybe someday. Dare to dream.
If you want to help support the podcast, rating us on iTunes goes a very long way. One rating on iTunes can do wonders.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. One good rating on iTunes, we should say.
Even bad ones. I guess with YouTube anyway, if you get tons of dislikes on a video, you're still getting ratings, so it still kind of appears viral to YouTube, which is pretty funny. Maybe not the same thing with iTunes, but be honest. Give us an honest rating on iTunes. Tell us what you think of the show.
I guess, yeah, absolutely. To some extent, some publicity is good publicity, but we would really love it if you would tell us that you like what we're doing.
Yeah.
Obviously. We like to think we're doing something nice that people enjoy. In any case, happy that Dan got settled, and let's start off talking about some movies, because I saw Maleficent the other day.
Why?
Because I was with my wife and a good friend of ours, and we decided to see it. It was between that and X-Men, and we didn't really make the X-Men showing, and I was fine seeing Maleficent. It was good. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would, as a matter of fact.
That was Angelina Jolie, right?
Yes, it was. Angelina Jolie as Maleficent, which was perfect casting, by the way. And then Aurora, or Sleeping Beauty, as many know her, was played by Elle Fanning, Dakota Fanning's younger sister.
Okay.
And it was good. I'm curious as to why people in fairy tale land are apparently all from Scotland, but otherwise, it had the guy, I can't remember his name. It's an interesting name. The guy from District 9. it's like Charlton something. I'll remember it. But he was like he was sort of the main antagonist, and he had this Scottish accent, and everyone, all of his subject and everything had this Scottish accent. So it's interesting. It's an interesting choice to go for, because I don't think any one of those people was naturally Scottish. And so I guess the kingdom of men was Scotland, and then the kingdom of the fairies was America, or I guess the UK or something, because everyone had British accents in the Moors, the magical part of the world, and then in the world of men with the kingdom and everything, everyone was Scottish. I just thought that was interesting. Was it a political statement? I don't know. I'm not worldly enough to be smart enough to know about that. But
so what without spoiling anything, I mean, I don't plan on seeing it, but for anyone who is, what was it about? Why should people see it or not see it?
Excellent question, Dan. It was it was definitely a new take on a classic story. And I think that's what Disney is kind of trying to do these days, because going back to Frozen, that was based on that's based on an old, I think it's an old Grimm's fairy tale or an old Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. And Disney's been doing that for a while, but I think they're starting to get a little bit more progressive with the way that they tell stories. And so this was, they've done Sleeping Beauty, but they thought, well, why don't we do it from the position of this villain? And I think a big reason they wanted to revisit Sleeping Beauty, the story, is because they didn't. And this is a good point. We're sort of past the point of evil villains just being evil for evil's sake.
Yeah.
This person's evil because they're evil, and they're going to be the main opposition. Yeah, just deal with it. They're evil, whatever. So it kind of, for telling the story from Maleficent's perspective, put her in a more protagonist light. She sort of turned her into somewhat of a tragic character, showing how she was originally very kind-hearted, and then why she sort of fell into this evil. It was kind of like, Anakin Skywalker, except in one movie and not terrible. So that was a good way to go.
So what about, they're always like that, though. That's always the story with an evil villain, when they go and introduce you to the evil villain from their point of view. It always starts out as they weren't that bad, and all of a sudden something messed up happened, and then they ended up being bad. Is there any other way to tell that story?
That's a great question. I feel like it does the same thing that Frozen does, where it goes with this old adage of, oh, true love's kiss can break the spell, and then it's not your typical, the prince that she just met is her true love.
Yeah.
So that's good. I won't give anything away more than that. But, I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate revisiting a story in which that was the case. Prince Philip, who was you've known for all of 5 minutes, is going to be the one to save you from this curse. That's not how it goes down. And so I could appreciate that. It makes me wonder where Disney stories are headed in general, because at the showing of Maleficent that I saw, there was a teaser for a new live-action Cinderella.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was just a very, very teasery, just rotating glass slipper, but that's happening.
Do you think that this is a form of reboot, or do you think this is better than reboots, the way they're doing it now, Disney especially, taking another point of view rather than just taking, because the Cinderella one obviously sounds like a reboot of Cinderella, probably live action, which I guess is a pass for that. People can't be too mad that it's not a reboot, it's live action, it's different. I don't know. I think I'm maybe a little more forgiving when they're taking the story but switching the point of view.
Right, and that's what they did with Maleficent, and that's one thing I'm wary of with Cinderella, because the whole thing with Maleficent, it was a classic story from a different point of view, and that was very clear from the outset. It's called Maleficent. It's not called Sleeping Beauty. So to be bringing Cinderella back and just be calling it Cinderella, are you just trying to have the same story for a new generation? Are kids today not interested in those old cartoons anymore? Is that the objective, or are you going to try and do something different as well? I would hope that Disney would go with the trend that they've been setting, which is something different and new and sort of a new take on things. Because if you ask me, that's really the only way to survive in movies these days. Really, you have to even if it's a classic story, even if you don't want to be super creative and come up with a somewhat original idea, you have to have a new take on an old idea.
Exactly.
So we'll see. I would say see Maleficent. Yeah, I mean, especially if you've got kids, especially if you're a fan of that mythology. I think you'll love it, and I don't think you'll have any qualms with paying a movie theater price to see it.
Nice.
So
Well,
yeah,
that's cool. I didn't expect that at all. I just thought another stupid whatever reboot Disney movie, but it sounds like they completely went a different direction, which is cool. I actually saw X-Men.
hey, I want to see X-Men. How is it?
It was good. I always judge these things by what other people say because you can put me in front of any superhero movie and at first I'll be entertained. And then later I'll think about it. And I can't decide right out of the theater if I didn't like it or not. I can't do that with any movie, really. It takes me a day or so to like kind of think about it or talk with other people, which generally means your opinion is influenced by their opinion. So I'm a really bad judge of these things, but it looks like this is a pretty good X-Men movie. I think for me, I preferred the previous Wolverine movie over it in terms of entertainment value. But I'm different. I really like the lone wolf kind of stuff. I'm no pun intended, Wolverine, whatever. But I do like that. I think the X-Men thing, to me, I've always been a little bit overwhelmed because they kind of have to focus on one character, and Wolverine generally takes the spotlight, which is kind of what happens in this movie a little bit.
Okay.
Not as much, but a little bit. And
Well, it's all about how Wolverine is basically going back in time to change history, right?
yeah,
I mean, that's what you get from the previews.
yeah. So without spoiling anything, yeah, and that's the gist of it, and he can go back and do that. So obviously it's going to focus around him a little bit, and it was a really interesting time travel concept. It was well done. It was a lot of fun. It was a good movie. So I would recommend it. It definitely fixed a lot of problems. I mean, since you can kind of gather that from the preview too. You're going back in time, and if you read the comics, you kind of may already know what's happening. I don't know. I didn't read the comics, but a lot of things that upset people from the previous X-Men trilogy kind of get fixed. So if you were someone who like was disgusted by X-Men 3, see this movie.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, I was already sold, but now I'm even more sold because while I enjoyed X-Men 3, The Last Stand, especially in the theaters, it was a good sort of a summer popcorn movie, but thinking back on it compared to the first two, it's just sort of disappointing.
Yeah.
It was sort of, I mean, first of all, I hadn't even read the comics at the time, but I had watched the old 90s TV show, which was at least somewhat faithful to that original story, and to see, especially since they teased that whole Phoenix thing in X-Men 2 at the very end, to see what they did with it in the third one was very disappointing, and very, very. Oh, okay, great, thanks for that, Brett Ratner, and the story that you wanted to do for the third X-Men movie. You're the Rush Hour guy. Stick with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker.
I would watch a new Rush Hour.
I would too, but I wouldn't watch
those
another.
Were awesome movies.
They
I
were
love
awesome
all of the
movies.
movies.
They were awesome movies, but don't take that guy and put him on an X-Men movie. Like, that was the thing. If you have, I mean, and then I know that it was an availability issue and they couldn't get Bryan Singer and whatever, but that direction from Bryan Singer is what made those first two movies so good, and that Bryan Singer is the reason that I don't care what anybody says, I will still sit down and watch Superman Returns. I don't even care. I will still sit down and watch that movie. It's not as action-packed as Man of Steel. We've discussed this in many episodes before, and you can listen to our namely my rants about it in previous episodes on Stitcher and at drewanddandigress.com. But I just feel like there's a certain directing style from Bryan Singer that's very appealing. And it doesn't have to be super action-packed, and it doesn't have to be super, super special effects heavy, because there's just so much. I don't know. There's just a lot of there's a very genuine sort of spirit behind it, and I really feel like just even from the previews, that's what I'm seeing in this new X-Men movie, is what I was missing from that third, from X-Men: The Last Stand, and that we sort of got back, even though it wasn't Bryan Singer, we sort of got that spirit back in First Class, and so I like the fact that it's both of those franchises sort of come together. So I guess that's my question for you: is how do those two worlds and those two those past and future casts and worlds come together in this movie? Is it done well?
I can't remember the first trilogy very well. That's my problem too. I saw those a long time ago, and I never took the time to go back and rewatch them. Which they're probably on Netflix, and I want to. So at some point I will. Everything fits really well, it seems. And my comic book nerd friends that came out of the theater with me at the time didn't have any qualms about that. So I'd say, just given like their perspective of it, because they probably remember those movies better than I do, and my own, I'd say it all fits together really well, and they did a good job redeeming some of the crap that went down in the other ones. I wouldn't worry about it. It's a good movie. And even if it doesn't meet all of your X-Men standards, it definitely was better than 3.
Good. That's the only real bottom line that I need.
Yeah.
Because it's just it needs to redeem itself a little bit. X-Men 3 is not terrible. It's just not as good as the other ones. It's just sort of the slump.
I've heard different opinions for the most part. Yeah, and like I said, I could be sat in front of any movie and be like, "This is entertaining," and then later like, "That wasn't entertaining." So,
right, exactly. I tend to get caught up in the whole movie experience, seeing it in the theater, and then so I'll be. I mean, I came out of Spider-Man 3 the same way. Like, oh, that was great, and then I wouldn't think about it. no, it's not. What Topher Grace is Venom? No, he's no. And he's like the most minor. Venom is the most minor villain in that movie. No, come on.
No.
You feature Sandman, like you do Sandman and like Goblin version 2 before you do Venom in this movie. Like
my favorite was, have you ever watched Honest Trailers on YouTube?
Yes.
The guy with movie voice and stuff. Yeah. They did one for the Spider-Man trilogy, and they got to Spider-Man 3, and he was like, "And watch as it gets ruined by Spider-Man 3," and you know that part where he's all emo and he has like the haircut and stuff? And he's going around pointing at people. The voice guy's like, "No, no, stop,
stop it, stop it right now."
Ew, gosh, it's such a bad movie.
Oh,
I haven't seen Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I want to. I really like the new Spider-Man movies. They're doing really well.
Yeah, it's Amazing Spider-Man 2 is really good. My wife and I saw that last week, and it's real good. I'd go so far as to say I like it better than the first Amazing Spider-Man.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Jamie Foxx just kills it. And Electro is one of those villains that I always wanted to see in a movie, but I thought it would just be so hokey and dumb if it was done live action, because you've seen the cartoons of him and the comic book strips of him, and he's just this weird kind of, he's got this weird costume, and he doesn't, he's great on paper, but on screen I never thought it would make sense. But
it's like Wolverine. He has this really stupid-looking costume in the comic books.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's true. It's absolutely true. But what they did with him was great, because there have been, I guess they went more of an Ultimate Spider-Man way. I mean, I haven't really caught up on all the different versions of him, but that's what I've heard is with Shocker they went more of an Ultimate Spider-Man route rather than like a classic Spider-Man route, and he's awesome. And Jamie Foxx is just great. I mean, he's an Oscar winner. I mean, he commits to it. It's crazy. He's just this comic book villain, but man, and you just see this real character progression with him, and the obsession that he's got with Spider-Man, and what leads him to be such a great villain. And I will say that there was a lot going on in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, because they had Shocker, and then they also had Green Goblin, and then at the very end they had Rhino, just to kind of spin the momentum into the next ones. They're setting it up for a Sinister Six thing, where it's like, where it's Dr. Octopus and Vulture and Shocker and just all of those villains. And I think they want to do Venom. I think Venom gets his own movie eventually.
Wow.
Or something. I keep reading things on websites here, and if it's on the internet, it must be true. But yeah, I guess Sinister Six, the 6 big Spider-Man villains are kind of getting their own thing, and then Venom's going to get his own movie. These are the things that I've heard muttered on dark corners of the internet.
I've read that the guy playing Superman has been locked into a lot of movies, and he's totally cool with it.
I mean, if it were me, yeah, I would be like, especially with a character like that, such an iconic role. Yeah,
Oh
just milk
yeah,
that for all it's worth, man. I know that Chris Evans was a little uneasy about playing Captain America for so many movies
yeah.
because they originally wanted him for 9 movies. They wanted him for 3 Captain America, 3 Avengers, and then cameos in 3 other Marvel movies. And
Wow.
he said no originally. He said, no, I'm not going to be known as Captain America my whole life. And so eventually they settled on a 6 movie commitment, but left it open ended. So he's
Okay.
still got Captain America and Avengers, and then maybe he already had a cameo in the second Thor movie, just as because Loki turns into him for a second, and it's just kind of this funny
Oh yeah,
moment.
yeah.
But yeah, so who knows how far that'll go? Maybe they'll get 9 movies out of him anyway. But
Maybe.
in my opinion, I don't care if it's Captain America or Superman or Batman or whatever.
These
Uh,
actors need to stop worrying about that.
I know. It's like, come on, man. People will love you forever, and you'll just keep raking it in if you just, if you just see all these things through. Maybe there's more to it than that, but I just figure like thinking about how how little I have in life compared to what these guys get to play these parts, to just go on camera and have fun. I mean, it's hard work,
Yeah.
obviously, but man, just keep doing it. Just they want you to play. Oh,
Why?
they want you to play Superman again. Oh,
Yeah,
boo.
exactly. What makes me so angry about that is like, well, basically what you're saying, but I lost my train of thought now. Damn it, I hate
Yeah.
that. When I have like, when you have, okay, so you have a role as Iron Man, for example. Robert Downey Jr. is kind of pulling away at this point. He's been Iron Man for a while. What is wrong with that? Like you were in bad shape before Iron Man. What
Yeah.
is wrong with like all of that past being wiped away and someone walking up to you on the street and going, "I know you from Iron Man." Oops, sorry, listeners.
Yeah.
I know you from Iron Man. And being like, "Oh man, I did so many other things though." Who cares? It's better than doing a dozen different things and being remembered maybe for one.
Yeah.
But when you're in one role for so long, now you're a superstar. Now you're remembered for that one thing. And then people really want to go see your movies when you're in something else, even though, oh, it's that guy from Iron Man. But like Sherlock, he did a
Yeah.
fantastic job as Sherlock Holmes. I love both of those movies. I really do.
Me too.
It just bugs me. It bugs me when an actor's like, I can't be known for that forever. Why not? It's better than being a nobody forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than just being known as that guy who was famous for a while and then was a train wreck and never recovered. Like you said, Robert Downey Jr. was in bad shape for a long time. And then
Yeah.
I mean, the Iron Man was really that movie that kind of gave him that clean slate and let him, gave him more leverage and gave him that kick back into superstardom. And right away it was, yeah, he's going to be in Sherlock Holmes. Awesome. I'll see the crap out of that movie.
That's exactly. And it was
Fantastic.
perfect.
It was a really good movie. So you got to use your resources. You can't. I mean, I try to understand how maybe you get to a point where you can be a little bit more choosy and you can, extend your range as an actor and things like that. But there's there's a moment in The Big Bang Theory where George Takei Sulu was a guest star,
I was
and that's
gonna
the
mention
thing.
Star Trek. That's funny.
We all know him as Sulu, and he
Yeah.
even says, and of course it was all scripted, but he was just like, "You try and stretch as an actor, play, do Strindberg, but all they want is course laid in, Captain." So I kind of get it. Maybe if you do it for too long, you sort of do get pigeonholed. But
Well, I was going to mention Star Trek because that's another thing I worry about. I really love the new Star Trek movies, both of them. I really do. They're awesome. I don't care if you're a diehard Star Trek fan and you think those movies are a travesty. Okay, that's fine because they're meant for a younger generation anyway. But my point is, I really like those, but I would hate it if like even one of the characters decided I don't want to be known as Spock forever. I'm gonna go do this other thing by Star Trek. That would ruin it because all the old generation of Star Trek, they all stayed on board. No
right,
pun intended. They stuck with the series, and for 7 movies and like all these seasons of TV shows, William Shatner will be forever known as Captain Kirk. That's
yeah,
not a bad thing. Now he's the Priceline guy.
I know.
You know, you could be known for two things.
I know, but he still does conventions. You know, he was at Denver Comic-Con last year. He was the replacement when Stan Lee couldn't make it. They got William Shatner, and everyone was perfectly content.
Yeah.
They were like, yes, please. I would love to have my picture taken with William Shatner. So there's so much staying power there. And like a perfect example, I was reading, Will Wheaton did some memoirs about being Wesley Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. They're called Memories of the Future. And he actually says in part of it, in the first volume that I have, he talks about Denise Crosby, who played Tasha Yar in Star Trek The Next Generation. She left because she didn't think the character was going anywhere. She didn't really, well, that's the hearsay. She didn't think the character was going anywhere. She didn't think the series was going anywhere. So she left. So they really unceremoniously killed her off. And but all these other people stuck with it. Michael Dorn stuck with it as Worf, and even wearing that makeup, which must have taken hours and hours a day to put on. Patrick Stewart stuck with it. Even Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, all these people stuck with it, and they are immortalized as the cast, the crew of the USS Enterprise. And even in the Family Guy episode they did with the cast, they killed Denise Crosby off after 2 lines.
Awesome.
Stewie literally shot her with a Klingon disruptor after she said 1 line.
That is awesome.
So it's that. I mean, so she's that character, not her as an actress, because she's been in other things and she's very talented. But that character is always just going to be this big joke.
Yeah.
Because they killed her just one day out of the blue, just killed her off, and so there's really something to be said for sticking with it. And it would really suck if all of a sudden, for the 3rd Star Trek, reboot movie, Zachary Quinto just says, I don't think I'm going to be Spock anymore.
What's cool is I love seeing interviews with these guys when they're off camera, because he actually loves the Spock character. He doesn't, but there might be one of them on the crew that's like, eh.
Yeah. I mean, and that's frustrating because I really feel like they are all perfectly cast.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
they did such a good job.
Yeah, I mean, Zoe Saldana and Chris Pine and Anton Yelchin, I mean, all of them are just amazing. And to go back for the 3rd installment of this reboot and see one of them played by a different person would be a travesty. And I understand you got to go your own way and you got to make your own decisions, but there's something to be said for consistency.
Yeah.
And your fans and your audience appreciates consistency. So, you have a certain responsibility as a performer. I mean, I've done that before. I've been in plays, and then they want to do the play again a couple years later, and even though my life has changed and, it's going to be harder to make it work, I still make it work because that was the part that I played, and I don't want someone else playing that part, even
fair.
If it turns out to be terrible. You just commit to it.
Not all characters can be Time Lords that regenerate.
Right, exactly. That only works with Doctor Who. They were the brilliant people to use that, and nobody else can use it now because not everyone can just regenerate into a person that looks, sounds, and acts different and have it rationalized.
There's a really obscure Family Guy Doctor Who reference in one of the newer episodes that made me smile.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I don't know if are you watching the new episodes? I don't want to give it away.
I am. I don't remember that though. I have been watching it.
Did you remember when he's in the car with Meg and he gets his hand cut off?
Yes.
And
he just grows it back.
Okay, I can regenerate, and he grows the hand back.
Yes.
But the other hand turns into another Peter.
I do remember that. I need to go back and watch that though, because that totally sailed. I don't know what it was, but it totally.
Oh, I caught it. I'm like, oh, cool.
I must have been like half asleep or something because there's no reason I wouldn't have got that, but I do remember that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I can regenerate. Doctor Who's just worked its way into every facet of entertainment.
Into the show twice now.
Yeah, exactly. So, we love Doctor Who. America loves Doctor Who. I'm just counting the days until August. New Doctor Who starts. They're starting to tease it. They're starting to release little, half-second teasers on.
It hurts, Drew.
I know.
Why did they wait so long?
Well, because they don't want to take a 3 or 4 week hiatus like most shows do right in the middle of the season.
Yeah, they're not going to do that. How many episodes of the season? Is it like 12?
12, yeah. Which is kind of the new standard. Unfortunately, we're past the days of Thundercats and stuff like that, where it was a new episode every day, 5 days a week, for a whole season. I got the DVD box set of Thundercats. I was like, holy crap, 52 episodes.
That's too many episodes.
What That's way too many episodes. The brochure said there would only be a few episodes.
Go away, Don Knotts.
This is a terrible vacation. Oh man, you have Family Guy to thank for that joke as well.
Yeah.
But Don Knotts is hilarious in any impression that anyone does.
Poor Don Knotts.
I love Don Knotts. American institution. Alrighty, well, it's time for us to end, but this was a good show.
Yes, we will pat ourselves on the back since you guys won't.
We shall. Yes, please. Maybe even just leave us a comment that just asterisk pats on back. Asterisk. Yeah, exactly. But thanks so much for listening. Feel free to subscribe on iTunes. Please give us good reviews on iTunes, because that's really more valuable than just clicking those stars. Not even if you don't want to writing a review.
Yeah, just click some stars, damn it.
Click those stars,
please.
damn it. And please. Ding. We're also on Stitcher. You can subscribe on both iTunes and on Stitcher. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you can actually see our somewhat good-looking faces when we do the podcast, raw and uncut. Giggity.
Plug.
Plug. Of course, all the episodes are available online at drewanddandigress.com. We also do write blogs and share fun videos and stuff like that on occasion. Just fun stuff outside of the actual podcast. But in any case, thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next time. My name's Drew.
I'm Dan.
Thanks for listening to Drew and Dan Digress.